All right, well, what I would like to emphasize for today is the 3 different ways that we can, myself continue and you continue in your way to support practice. And the first is to recall again and again what you have experienced from your practice of mindfulness. So every time you have an experience that stands out with mindfulness, my teacher always said, bookmark it in your mind. What was that? So your awakened mind is what you're seeking for, and it's also what's waking you up. So this is our refuge, our awakened mind. And throughout our days, when we're not formally practicing, we return over and over again to reminding ourselves to wake up in this moment. When I first began to practice, I formalized this by putting sticky notes all over my house, in my car, at my desk at work. Come back, be here now. Various phrases I used, and now it's natural to me to remind myself intermittently through the day, come back, be here now. And so that is the refuge of awakened mind. And then the second refuge is seeking teachings, seeking understanding, whatever fits for you. It might not be this particular practice. It may turn out you want to do different practices, but this one's pretty rich. So, and enjoying the search and enjoying the study. So it might be reading, it might be listening to video talks online, it might be eventually going to live teachings. And that is the refuge in the trainings, the understandings, guided meditations, that sort of thing. And again, I'm suggesting that you really take that on as something to enjoy, not an obligation, just something because it appeals to you. Look into it, have fun. And the third refuge is having a community. So your community may not remain the same throughout your practice years, but finding other people who enjoy practice like you do, who are curious about it, who you can talk to about how their practice is going, what has meaning for them, what books they've read, which teachers they like, and eventually what practice days they've attended, what retreats they go to. So that's the third refuge, which I have found very valuable, is friends who also like to practice, such as Phil and Allan and Christine. These really enrich, having friends like this really enriches the practice. So I would encourage that. And then I think I have to be careful about time. One more thing I would say is the practice is challenging. So you can have all these pleasant experiences that might come up on some retreats or some practice sessions. You get the relaxation, you get the ease, you get the pleasure. But what that does is basically saturate your mind and body, and it makes it safe for the difficult stuff to come to the surface. So when that happens and you're confused by it or you don't know what to do, that's when you seek out help from a teacher. So over time, you may find that you're surprised at the level of challenge that can come up in your practice, but know that your teachers have gone through it too, and they may be able to support you in getting through the challenging times. So those are the things I wanted to say.
Allan, would you like to share next, please?
What Leslie said.
we all say different things, and whatever speaks to you is really, really important. And Leslie's speaking about a large, beautiful framework which exists in any spiritual community. That capacity to look for the teachings, the wisdoms, to find support with fellow travelers, and to find teachers as well to guide you. And that becomes a community of practice, which is essential. The other piece to add, and these aren't either ors, this is the harmony of the yin yang. The story is told of when the Knights of the Round Table, and there were women there as well, by the way, it wasn't only men. The Knights of the Round Table went on the quest for the Holy Grail, the fountain of youth, the wisdom, the eternal journey. And they arrived at the forest. And the forest is the unknown that Leslie speaks about, which is not always easy. It's not always joy and forgiveness and compassion and kindness and patience and love and peace. And the story is told, and it's a beautiful line. When the knights approached the forest, each of them had to enter a forest at the path of their own choosing. And so at different times, different practices will speak to you. At different times, different teachers will speak to you. And the guide will be, how do you know when you need to shift or move? Well, we've just had a day of paying very careful attention to what's going on inside of you. To notice those energies, to be able to let go and say, you know what, I think I've learned what I've came for from this community or this teacher. Not to hold one person's teachings up and reify it, or at worst even deify it, but to move around. And some people are wanderers and some people are seekers. And some people are more interested in the journey than the destination. And some people want to choose one path and go very, very, very deeply into that path and traditions, all of which go back many, many, many years. And some people mix and match. And whatever speaks to you is the right one for you. All of those paths are founded on the mindful practice. Mindfulness is that first moment of awareness on purpose, in the moment, to the fullness of your experience, your body, your mind, your heart, your energies, the context you find yourself in, the world up there. So whatever path you're on, mindfulness will serve as a beautiful foundation, always and everywhere. The practices are similar, whatever tradition you're in, about paying attention, periods of silence, periods of contemplation. As I've heard it say, the packaging is different, but the contents are the same. The ways, the kinds of suffering and pain are universal, and the healing components are universal. The packagings are different. And so to be listening all the time. The joy of mindfulness is that it is universal practice. Everyone has the capacity to do it. Keep on training. And remember that there are three ways of practicing mindfulness. The one is what we've done today, which is sort of a formal, structured thing. And as Leslie said, there might be audio tapes or listening to instructors or guided meditations and so forth. We call that formal practice. There's more intensive practice, as Leslie said, which are things like retreats that we are doing here today. So it's a little more intensive than the 20 minutes or 40 minutes you might have started a day with earlier this week. And then there's the informal practice. And those are actually those beautiful moments of delight where suddenly you notice, as Leslie said, where within your own heart and your own mind, those little stickers that were externally put up on the walls and the doors and the mirrors, you actually don't need those anymore, because those moments of mindfulness, or as Phil has said before on other occasions, the mindfulness starts doing you. That becomes informal practice. It starts to just show up at these interesting moments. And so we start to dance with mindfulness, and mindfulness starts to dance with us. Wrapping up a couple of other comments. Mindfulness for me provided clarity. So one thing that mindfulness gave me, in this paying attention, I can see the workings of my mind. I can see the full range of the sources of wisdom within me, in addition to my thinking. I can see when my strong emotions are yanking me around. And I can see that in that moment, with clarity, I have choice. That little distance I have as we observe and hold all the phenomena and experience, there's that moment of choice where I set my intention. I'm at the doorway of a more wise and skillful mind. I'm at the doorway of a more skillful word or deed. And that is going to improve the quality of my life, the quality of the people around me. So just remembering a few simple things like that. And remembering the harmony. A final comment. Coming to that harmony, the relationship between, that all the stuff is there. And so as we have that curve of the yin yang there between the light and the dark, there's a harmonic between them, and we need to just be balancing those things all the time so that we don't get yanked around one way or the other. And I'll stop there, Paul. We need you unmuted, please, Phil.
So the first thing that I like to say is community is very, very important. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have spent the day with you, with Leslie and Allan, in terms of listening to their teachings, and for all of you to have joined us today so that we have an opportunity to teach. And in our teaching, we learn, and we learn from you. And so going forward, find a community if you can to support you. And if Wellness Through Mindfulness offers that community, please join us. And we offer Zoom presentations twice a month through the Calgary Public Library. Don't believe anything you have heard today. This is our truth. It's not your truth. I'm just trying to get something going here, and I can't. This is our truth. It's not necessarily your truth. And so I think we need to be pluralists, not monoliths. And I think what that means is like going to a buffet, and you don't only have the chocolate cake. You have the salmon, you have the salad. And this is what it's all about. The capacity to pick and choose and incorporate it into your own path. I started doing meditation many years ago, and I did it to try and deal with my anxiety. And over many years, I was given a gift. I began to notice that, yes, I was less anxious, that not as many things would tend to stimulate me, that it wasn't provoked as often and as high, and my resilience was greater. What I also noticed, that there was a much greater sense of friendliness and compassion for myself and others. That meditation does you. And the reason why is that we have this tremendous capacity to have what we call neuroplasticity, that our brains can change. And as we meditate and develop focused attention, our prefrontal cortex increases, emotional regulation, and our amygdala decreases, center of fear. So I encourage you to practice daily. Don't expect change to occur rapidly, and be open to the unexpected. Mindfulness is a wonderful technique. And as I have tried to discuss with you previously, its essence is not about awareness. Its essence is not to be non-judgmental. The essence of mindfulness is non-attachment, disidentification. And so I see mindfulness as an engaged discernment leading to non-attachment and skillful behavior. So make it simple for yourself. Remember to wait when you are confronted with an event that activates you. What am I thinking? What am I touching? Why am I thinking this? And what am I trying to do? Bring awareness to the moment with cues to remember what you're doing. Label your experience, which is the best way to develop meta-awareness and non-attachment. Engage your breath and your body, because this is a direct way to feel your experience and get out of your thinking head. And ask that simple question, who is calling to be heard? That reminds you that it is your wounded child that is calling. And that this sense of self is a construct. It's made up moment to moment. It really is there to try and meet your unmet needs. And when you come to action, remember, what is the aim of my action? Is it for altruistic behavior? What's the intentionality? And is it ethical? The biggest tragedy in life is not death. The biggest tragedy in life is the fear to live life. We live our lives walled in alive. We live lives limited by the beliefs of who we are and how we should behave. And so I'm not asking for you to perform egocide, to kill your ego, to kill your I. It serves a valuable function. But it's important to remember that. And when you ask who is calling to be heard, there is a really very important part of you. And one might call it your soul, but perhaps it's that innate passion that has this opportunity to live through you. And one needs to recognize it and one needs to honor it. And I close with an experience that I think for me really reflects mindfulness. And I call it my Gabor Mate moment. So Gabor Mate is a Canadian physician, born in Hungary during the Holocaust. He was 1 year old and his mother gave him away to a non-Jewish woman so he wouldn't be killed. His mother brought him back 1 year later, and he came to Canada. And he studied, and he became a physician, an addiction expert, and he recognized the importance of I lost it there. And he recognized the importance of how the inner child and wounding played in physicality. So I was driving in my car a few years ago and I was listening to a tape. And he talked about the fact that this was his history, he was Jewish, he was a physician, and he was suffering. And in that moment, all of a sudden, there was this profound sadness that I felt, that there was something deeply resonant in his history that connected with me. And in that moment, there was just this knowing sense that I needed to turn towards my suffering, and I needed to completely inhabit it. I needed to completely be one with it. And there was no sense of I needed to turn to this. There was no sense that I was suffering. It was a knowing quality of mind that recognized the absolute importance of inhabiting what I was feeling. And at that moment, I don't think I truly appreciated what it was that I was inhabiting. But as I reflected on it over time, I think I was really touching into what it was for me in its most intimate way to be human. That this core sense, perhaps, that maybe we all carry, that in some way we're just not good enough, that we're not lovable, safe, or worthy enough. And we're not normally conscious of this. It's something that is suppressed and we are able to defend against it. But I really believe that in some way I had touched the essence of my pain and my suffering. And during that time when I listened and I was turning towards it, and then it passed. And there was this feeling of absolute just release and relief. And I really thought, as I reflected on it, this is what mindfulness is. It's not something that I consciously did. It was a knowing quality of this humanness that I am, that was able to turn towards my experience, to feel it, to experience it, to be it, but not the one that was it. So I'd just like to share that with you. And we'd like to all thank you for your presence today. And so we are now going to go to a question and answer opportunity. And I am going to turn this over to Leslie.